Okay, I was going to talk about a specific video, and in order to do that I was going to rely on some of the comments under the video, but that is taking a while to load, so rather than focusing on that one video, I'm going to focus on general issues to do with the subject. I'm sure I've raised this before in my videos, but like I say, sometimes I, let's say, update my thoughts on certain things. This is about the whole subject of objectification, which is a word that gets thrown around a lot in my opinion. And in sort of addressing this, I want to say, please hear me out, please hear everything I have to say before commenting. Yeah, so objectification is a word I believe is thrown around a lot, but broadly speaking it is the idea that someone, especially women, are sort of appreciated only for their physique, for their physical sexuality. That's the sort of underlying critique of objectification. But to me, objectification is one of those words that is very abstract. It sort of can be interpreted in various ways. A little bit like Islamophobia, which is another word I have a problem with. Not that I want to go off on a tangent about that, but just to explain what I'm talking about. A phobia is an irrational fear. Being concerned about the rise of radical Islam or Islamism is not irrational. So I prefer to use the term anti-Muslim prejudice for those people who demonize all Muslims. I think anti-Muslim prejudice is a more accurate term than Islamophobia. I believe that is a term used to stifle legitimate criticism of Islam. So likewise, I think objectification is a word that is very, very often thrown around by people with an agenda, and of course I'm talking about feminists. And this is male feminists as well, do this. So I want to discuss this a little bit, and I'd like a little bit of feedback on this video from subscribers. Just a quick word, if you are one of my subscribers, occasionally I've seen people asking or requesting that I make videos on a specific subject. I'm happy to have feedback, I do appreciate that, but I'd prefer if we have a thread on a certain video to stick to the subject, simply because it's there would be no point of me talking about a specific subject if the thread then diverts to something else. And I appreciate the feedback, but I'm just saying that, you know, I guarantee you I'll try to make videos on a wide range of subjects. So I think it's just more practical if we keep to the issue at hand. But objectification, this is something that is mentioned a lot in the British media, especially left-wing sources. That what I'm talking about is left-wing newspapers, and sometimes not just left-wing newspapers, also other bodies of the press. It seems to me that the third wave Western feminists exist to be offended. It seems to me that they will always find a reason to object to something. Now, like I said, I was going to make a specific video about a specific video. The video I'm talking about is something called, I think it's called This Girl Can. I haven't put the link because, like I said, it was taking too long to load, but This Girl Can, check it out, it's got a lot of views. Now, on the surface it seems to me simply a drive to encourage women to exercise more. Because research has shown that 6.8 million women do a sport at least once a week. That compares to 8.8 million men. So the statistics from that point of view, and I'm aware statistics aren't always reliable, but at least they indicate that seemingly more men are exercising. So this seems to me to be a relatively innocent, let's say, approach or push for women to exercise more. And it's sort of going on the tagline that you can look like a pig, i.e. you can sweat like a pig, and there's nothing wrong with that. So the focus really is on exercise. Well, surprise, surprise, a professor at the University of Bath, who I'm sure is a feminist. Okay, I can't dictate what someone else thinks, but you know, to me it's a classic feminist line. She objects to it because she says it's objectifying women. Now, unless I'm mistaken, this is a campaign that's driven by women. It's not, you know, this isn't a men's magazine has come up with this so that men can look at these women working out. It's, I think it's Closer actually, which is a woman's magazine, has come up with the idea. Don't quote me on that, it might be another source, but I'm pretty sure it isn't a bunch of men in a pub that have come up with this. So this just makes me think, well, my goodness, is there anything that feminists don't have a problem with? To me it just seems like a common sense drive to get women to exercise. And it's, you know, for health and well-being and a sense of confidence. It's got nothing to do with objectification. Yes, the video shows women working out, but at this point I want to talk about why I have such a problem with this term. There is something very, very, very puritanical behind the criticism of so-called objectification. Now, I'm sure I've said this in other videos, I am not saying that there is no problems at all with representation of sexuality in the media, although I don't think that advert was about that, certainly not explicitly. But I don't think that all representations of sexuality is okay. I think there are certain limits, and I do appreciate arguments about impressionable young women being influenced by powerful magazines or powerful media sources. I'm sympathetic to that. I can understand that has a big impact. We should never trivialize issues like bulimia or I think it's body dysmorphia it's called. So I'm not trivializing those issues. I do think they're serious issues, and it is legitimate that the sources of those problems are discussed. What I have a problem with is that the feminist movement wants to control everything. They want to control everything they perceive to be objectification. So you have one lobby group, and feminists are a minority, who want to control the perception of sexuality for everyone else. In other words, they're treating everybody else like children who can't handle it. Certainly women, I think it's very patronizing to women for feminists to constantly say, this is not good for you. Let women decide themselves whether it's good for them or not. And whilst there are impressionable young women, I don't believe that every single adult woman in Britain is going to be impacted by what a magazine says. And frankly, if they are, they need to get a little bit more self-control and be more assertive. And I would say exactly the same about young men who are obsessed by building muscles and so on. But that's another thing I have with the feminist approach to this. When they talk about objectification, they're not consistent. They're not talking about objectification of the human body generally. They're just talking about in the context of women. Now today I was in the pawn shop, and they had calendars for sale. One was called Babes. I had a look at the back. Believe me, it's not my thing. I didn't want to buy it, but I just wanted to get an impression, because I had a feeling I was going to make a video like this of the sort of thing they were showing. And it was quite sexualized, I'm not going to deny that. You know, it showed a woman's rear end, it showed breasts, it showed midriff and so on. Guess what? Right next to it, there was a calendar called Hunks. And what do you think that showed? It showed male models with beaming six-packs and bronze figures and working out. I mean, what is the difference? The simple answer is there is no difference. Both calendars are focusing on human sexuality. Now this is the point where I really have questions for feminists. Why do they have such a problem with the human body? If feminism is really about freedom of choice and about respecting women's liberty to do what they want, why is it they have no respect for the autonomy of female models? It might not be their cup of tea, and to be honest, it's not my cup of tea. I don't particularly go for that sort of hardcore. Well, it wasn't particularly hardcore, but you know, I prefer more subtle personally. But I don't think that is I don't know how you can call that objectification. I'll show you, just for the record, what I like, just to put things in context. I'm not sure if you can see that. Can you see the poster? It's a Chinese actress, her name's Fan Bingbing. I think that is elegant. I don't think it's overtly sexualized, but I do think it has notions of sexuality and femininity. I think it's beautiful. I'm a heterosexual man. I appreciate female beauty. And guess what? I'm not going to apologise to anyone for that. Why? Because Fan Bingbing is a very successful and very rich actress who is an adult woman who knows full well what she's doing. So that is what I think is completely healthy. Now, if I had a picture, maybe showing a graphic portrayal of female genitalia, I guess it could be argued that's hardcore pornography. I don't go for that sort of thing anyway, but yeah, okay, there might be questions about that. But again, it comes down to the question of choice, and this really is a critical issue. Now, I'm not saying when it comes to the sex industry, for want of a better term, and that's a very, very, very broad field, but let's say, just as a generic term, I'm not so naive to argue that it's always the case that people have a choice. There is corruption in the industry, and there are powerful people who probably do control the models, both male and female. So I'm not here to defend the sex industry and say that it is without fault. Of course it's not without fault. I'm sure there's many, many legitimate areas to criticise. What I have a problem with this current obsession, and that's what it is, obsession about sexuality, about objectification, is that it's all about control. I mean, ironically, there isn't much difference between what feminists are demanding, which is that all depictions of sexuality are just banned, because in their opinion it demeans women, and what certain theocrats are calling for. They might have different reasons why they want it banned. In the case of feminists, it's because they believe it demeans women. In the case of Islamists, it's because they think it's immoral. And certain Christian groups as well, for that matter. My response is, in liberal democracies, you cannot dictate what adults do with their own bodies. That would be my stance. So long as they aren't breaking the law, then what gives feminists a right to dictate to everybody else, this is wrong, this demeans women, and therefore it should be banned? I support their freedom of expression. I support their right to say, we don't like this, we think it demeans women. But what I have a problem with is the fact that they lobby the government to try and ban things they don't like. It's all about control, and I find it really nauseating. And I am convinced that there is a difference here in terms of the whole notion of empowering women, because to a feminist, women are only empowered if it means basically sticking fingers up at a man. That is the modern day notion of female empowerment to feminists. You know, they will say it's all about equal opportunity and so on. Rubbish. If it was about equal opportunity, they would respect women's rights to choose what they want to do with their own body, including appearing in men's magazines and so on. I think the real issue here is that feminists hate the idea that heterosexual men appreciate the female form. And I really disregard this idea that if a heterosexual man appreciates female sexuality, then he's treating her like a piece of meat. That's rubbish. I mean, you know, to me, as a heterosexual man, the female form is beautiful. A piece of meat is ugly. It's bloody, it's rough, I don't know how they make that comparison. Maybe it comes down to the stereotype of a sleazy old man in a nightclub looking at the young woman around a pole. Now, that's a factor, admittedly, but what I really have a problem with is how the feminist movement wants to censor everybody else. They want to censor women choosing what they want, and they want to censor heterosexual men appreciating it. So long as those heterosexual men aren't going over the line, i.e. harassing women, or sexually abusing women, then I really don't think it's a problem. I'm not going to apologise for absolutely natural instincts, i.e. appreciating female beauty. No way, I'm not going to apologise for it. I mean, it's the most natural thing in the world, and feminists act like it's something to be ashamed of. The same applies to, well, they don't have a problem with male sexuality, because hey, it's men, it doesn't matter. So they don't hold the same standards at all. So much for their claims about equality. I'm sorry for the rant, but this does bother me, because they obsess over it. And to me, this is probably one of the main things that demonstrates that feminism, modern day Western third wave feminism, is about control. It's not about equality, it's about control. And it's about dictating to others what they want. So, it's a lot more ideologically based than humanitarian based. Just look at the way feminists bully women who don't agree with them. There was an actress, I forget her name, she had an unusual name, but she actually had to apologise and retract the fact that she said she didn't describe herself as a feminist. This is madness. That we're living in a situation whereby women, not just men, but women as well, are actually being bullied by the feminist movement to pigeonhole themselves into calling themselves feminists. And then people were replying and saying, oh, but feminism's about choice. Yeah, feminists, prove it. Prove it. And respect women who don't call themselves feminists. Another point is when they say, oh, but I'll show you the dictionary definition. Frankly, dictionary definitions count for a lot less than actions. Dictionary definitions are basically utopian. They're an ideal vision of the way something should be. It's a definition. It's not the de facto reality of something, especially when we're talking about ideology. So just to conclude, what I'm saying here is not that it is okay that any sort of displays of sexuality, human sexuality, is okay, completely fine. I mean, for example, I've got no problem with retailers being asked to put the likes of The Sun and men's magazines on shelves with covered titles. I think that's fine, on the grounds that children can see them. Not because feminists have a problem with them, but because, you know, they're at the level where children can see them. I don't think children should be seeing that stuff. But again, you know, feminists always attack men's magazines. Why not women's magazines as well? They're equally shallow. And by the way, I don't particularly like men's magazines. I think they're a bit crude. I don't have much time for them. And I do think sometimes there is questionable material in them. So I have no problem with feminists, or anyone for that matter, criticising those magazines. What I do have a problem with is their lack of consistency. Now, a lack of consistency indicates there is an agenda. Why is it they only criticise men's magazines and not equally shallow women's magazines? Why is it they criticise objectification of women but not objectification of men? Are they going to say, oh well, men are more free of their own will? Really? So you're telling me that a young Chippendale who goes to, let's say, a nightclub full of rowdy middle-aged women is entirely okay with that? So I just have a problem here with the inconsistency. I'm not saying that there is no problems connected with this. All I'm saying is that I'm fed up with feminists obsessing over this issue, because I believe their approach to it is about control. Because I guarantee you, if men like something connected with women, feminists will have a problem with it, because it must be the nasty patriarchy trying to control women. A final point, I appreciate all feedback, and I always say I appreciate my subscribers, but I have noticed that most of the feedback I get is from guys. Now that's fine, please, you know, you guys who are commenting, continue to do so, it's very welcome. But I would like to get a little bit more feedback from women. So if you are female, please do comment. I would like to hear your perspective. You don't have to agree with me. I'm going to keep the comment section open. Obviously, if you're a hardcore feminist and you come on just to insult me, well, that's a different matter. But if you have a difference of view and you want to argue a certain point, you know, I'm prepared to listen. I'm prepared to keep your comment. I would ask that it's respectful though, because, you know, I've taken the attitude now. I don't have to respond to people who hurl personal abuse at me. You know, I keep the comment section open for diverse views, and if you don't believe me, check out my videos. 99% of them have the comment section open. Anyway, if you're a woman and you agree with me, your views would be absolutely welcome, because I think it's a lot easier for a woman to speak out about these things in some ways than for a man, because feminists have an inbuilt, institutionalized hostility to male opinions that don't agree with them. Because if a man dares speak his voice to a feminist, their thinking automatically goes to victimhood, 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 male oppression, male oppression, male oppression. So it's almost impossible for a man to have a healthy debate with a feminist, because that institutionalized victimhood is always there. So I do think we need confident, honest women who are skeptical of third wave feminism to speak out a lot more, which is why I'm very sympathetic to Women Against Feminism. But you know, that's going off on a tangent. So this video is all about the idea of objectification. In my opinion, it's greatly exaggerated, and it's a term that's thrown around. And I think it is done so by a feminist movement that is hell-bent on control. And I don't think that we should be repressing human sexuality. Clearly there are limits. I mean, for example, if you have the Sun newspaper showing 18-year-old girls topless just to titillate male readers, that is not the same as artistic. Well, I don't think that's the best example, put it that way. Let me know your thoughts, and thanks for watching.